The girl in the glass pod. Jace wiped the sweat from his forehead as the twin suns beat down on the junkyard. Metal towers and broken ships surrounded him. He was just a repairman, not a hero, not a soldier, just someone trying to earn enough money to survive. He had worked at Gray Point Station for 2 years. It was a place where old ships were dumped, torn apart, or sold for parts. Most people didn't care what was inside the ships. Jace did. He liked to look around, explore, and sometimes he found strange things. But today was different. His scanner beeped, one long, loud sound. He paused. That sound meant something was giving off power. Old ships shouldn't be doing that. He followed the signal to a dark corner of the junkyard, where a heavy ship was half buried under other wrecks. The name on the side had faded long ago. The door creaked as he pushed it open. Dust flew into the air. Inside, the lights flickered like ghosts trying to wake up. Then he saw it. A large glass pod stood in the middle of the room. It was shaped like a coffin, but made of something much stronger. Inside the pod, a girl floated, motionless. She didn't look human. Her skin was a soft blue, glowing slightly under the light. Her hair floated around her like silver threads in water. She wore a strange white suit, thin like paper but unbroken after all this time. Her eyes were closed, and she looked peaceful. Jace stepped back. His heart beat faster. Is she alive? He checked the panel on the side of the pod. He didn't recognize the language, but the symbols were flashing softly. Green, not red. That had to mean something good. Suddenly, the pod made a soft beep. Jace froze. The girl's eyes opened. They were bright violet. She looked around, confused. Her eyes locked onto his. She didn't move, didn't speak. She just stared. Then, slowly, her hand rose and pressed against the glass. Jace didn't know what to do. He wasn't trained for this. He wasn't a scientist. He wasn't even supposed to be here. But something inside him whispered, "Help her." He reached out and placed his hand on the glass, right where hers was. The ship shook slightly, as if something deep inside had turned on. Then the lights went out. "Great," Jace muttered. He tapped his wrist pad and activated a small flashlight. When the beam returned to the pod, he gasped. The glass was opening. Mist hissed from the sides as the seal broke. The girl slowly sat up, shivering, her eyes still fixed on him. She opened her mouth as if to speak, but no sound came out. Her body wobbled, and then she fainted. Jace rushed forward and caught her before she hit the floor. She was cold, ice cold. He carried her to the back of his ship, unsure what he was doing. He wrapped her in a blanket, placed a heat pad near her chest, and sat beside her. She was alive. He could see her breathing, slow and weak. He looked at her and whispered, "Who are you?" She didn't answer. Of course not. He glanced at the old pod again. Strange markings ran across it. Not just words, symbols, drawings. They looked ancient. He took pictures with his wrist pad. Maybe he could study them later. Hours passed. Finally, the girl stirred. Her eyes opened again, softer this time. She looked around the small ship cabin, then at Jace. "Hey," he said gently. "You're safe." She didn't understand the words, but she didn't look afraid. Not anymore. Instead, she did something strange. She reached out and gently touched his chest, right where his heart was. Her hand glowed slightly. Then she closed her eyes and smiled. Just a little smile. Jace didn't know what was happening, but he knew one thing for sure. This wasn't just some alien body in a pod. This girl was something special, and now she was his responsibility. He sat back, watching her breathe. Outside, the junkyard was silent, but inside his small ship, something new had begun. Something strange, something big. And it all started with a broken ship and a girl in a glass pod. She doesn't speak, but she remembers him. Jace sat in the quiet room, staring at the girl wrapped in the blanket. The stars outside blinked like tiny eyes, watching. The only sound was her soft breathing. She looked peaceful now, but earlier, she had almost stopped breathing. He still couldn't believe what had happened. A glowing blue alien girl, frozen inside a glass pod, hidden in an old wreck for who knows how long. And now she was here, in his ship, alive. He didn't know her name. He didn't know her language. But something inside him said she wasn't dangerous. She had touched his chest, his heart, and smiled. That had to mean something. Jace stood up and checked the pod again. Its systems were shut down now, but he took a closer look at the strange markings. They weren't just symbols. They told a story. Circles, stars, hands touching. Then more ships, fire, and a single glowing figure inside a pod. It was her. She had been placed inside the pod for protection. Maybe for peace. But peace from what? He shook his head. No one would believe this. If the company found out, they'd take her away. They'd sell her, or worse. He couldn't let that happen. The girl made a soft noise behind him. He turned quickly. She was awake again. Sitting up now, but slowly, carefully. She looked around the small ship room, blinking at the lights, the walls, the control screens. Then her eyes landed on him. He raised his hands, showing he meant no harm. "It's okay. You're safe." She tilted her head, not understanding. He pointed to himself. "Jace." Then he pointed at her, asking gently, "You?" She looked at his finger, then at her own hands. She didn't answer. But then, very slowly, she touched her chest and closed her eyes. He understood. She remembered something. A feeling. A place. Not a name. Not yet. But something. Jace stood and walked over to a small box near the wall. Inside were things he had collected. Broken tools, old books, little pieces of earth he liked to keep around. He opened a dusty book. Inside it, pressed between two pages, was a dried flower. Pale yellow. Still beautiful, even after all this time. He had kept it from Earth. It reminded him of home. He walked over to the girl and slowly, gently, offered the flower. She looked at it, confused. She didn't take it at first. But then she reached out, her fingers brushing against the petals. Something strange happened. The flower glowed. Just a little. She gasped and pulled her hand back. But the glow didn't stop. She reached again, and this time held the flower close to her heart. Her eyes filled with tears. Not of fear, not of pain, but something deeper. Jace sat beside her. "What is it?" he whispered. She looked at him again, and then, for the first time, made a sound. Peace. The word was soft, broken, like wind through leaves. But it was real. She had spoken. He blinked. You said peace." She nodded. Her voice was weak, like it hadn't been used in a long, long time, but she spoke again. "Peace, flower, peace." Jace smiled. "That's right. On Earth, flowers mean peace, and love, and hope." She didn't understand the full sentence, but she understood his face, his tone, his heart. Her fingers glowed softly again. She touched the flower, then his chest, then her own. She was trying to say something. That they were connected now. Somehow. Jace felt a strange warmth in his chest, a kind of calm he hadn't felt in years. Maybe he had found something bigger than a job, bigger than a wrecked ship. Maybe he had found a reason to fight for something real. That night, she slept again. Curled up on the small bed, still holding the flower, Jace sat nearby, watching her breathe. He didn't know who she was. He didn't know where she came from. But now he knew this. She wasn't just an alien girl. She was a message, a secret, and maybe a second chance for two worlds that once tried to destroy each other. Jace looked at the stars through the window. "Tomorrow," he whispered, "we find out your name." Her tears were not sad. The ship was silent when Jace opened his eyes. He had fallen asleep in the pilot's chair. His head rested against a worn-out cushion, and the stars outside were still glowing, distant, and calm. He blinked, then turned his head slowly. She was still there. The alien girl lay curled under the thin blanket, the dried earth flower still held tightly in her hand. Her blue skin shimmered faintly in the soft light of the control panel. But something had changed. Her face was wet. Tears. Jace stood quickly and moved closer. He didn't want to wake her, but he couldn't ignore it either. He knelt beside her. The flower still glowed, soft and golden. It hadn't lost its color. But her tears, they sparkled. Not like human tears. Each drop glowed with its own tiny light, like stars falling from her eyes. Jace stared in awe. And then, her eyes opened. She looked at him. Her cheeks were wet, her lips parted slightly. She didn't try to hide her tears. She didn't look away. Instead, she reached out and touched his hand. He whispered, "Are you okay?" She didn't answer with words. She touched her own cheek, collecting one glowing tear with her fingertip. Then she placed it on his hand. The tear sank into his skin. He felt something. Not pain, not fear, but memory. He saw a wide field of glowing plants, giant trees with purple leaves, a sky full of twin moons, children running, laughter. Then, fire, ships in the sky, screaming, a war, and finally, silence. She stood alone, holding a flower, her hands shaking. She had been crying that day too, but not because she was sad, because she had still believed in peace, even when everything was lost. Jace opened his eyes again, back in the ship. She looked at him and spoke one broken word. "Remember." He couldn't believe it. Somehow her tear had shown him her memories. Not just pictures, but emotions, feelings, like he had lived them himself. She placed her hand on the flower between them, then pointed to her heart, then his. He understood. That flower, an earth flower, had awakened something inside her, a memory of her own world, a world where flowers meant something powerful too. Maybe they weren't so different after all. Jace stood and walked to the storage panel on the wall. He opened a small drawer and pulled out a medical scanner. It was old but still worked. He gently scanned her body. The screen beeped. Her heart rate was rising. Her energy levels too. Slowly, her body was healing. And the scanner picked up something strange. Small pulses of light energy moving through her veins. She wasn't just alive. She was changing. Or maybe, returning to what she once was. He turned the scanner off and sat beside her again. "You're getting stronger." She blinked slowly. "Strong. Because, flower." He smiled. "Yeah, I think so." She reached for the flower again and carefully pulled one petal off. She placed it on the floor. Then she touched it, and the petal lit up like a small lamp. Jace gasped. "You can control light." She nodded slowly. "Light, memory, peace." He shook his head in disbelief. "How can a flower do that?" She looked at him with those violet eyes. Then she said softly, "Not flower. You." He didn't understand at first, but then she placed her hand over his heart again. "You gave." And he understood. The gift wasn't the flower. It was the act of giving. In her culture, in her world, giving something beautiful without asking for anything in return was a sacred act, a bond. That one act had awakened her. He hadn't given her a weapon, or a command, or a threat. He gave her something kind. And now she was blooming again. Jace stood up and stared out the window. The stars were still there, the world still cruel. But something inside this tiny ship had changed. A spark had lit up in the darkness. She was no longer just a survivor. She was becoming something powerful, something beautiful. He turned around and asked gently, "What is your name?" She paused, touched her forehead, then her lips, and finally whispered, "Sira." Jace smiled. "Sira," he repeated. It was soft, musical, a name full of light. That night, Sira didn't cry, but she stayed close to him, sometimes silent, sometimes whispering words in her old language, and sometimes just holding the flower in her hands and humming a tune so sweet and sad that even the stars outside seemed to slow down to listen. Jace didn't sleep much. He just watched her, and for the first time in years, he felt something inside him stir. Not fear, not duty, but something warmer, something closer to hope. The truth about her past. Jace stood in front of the pod. Again, he had cleaned the outside, studied the markings, scanned the systems, but no matter how much he looked, the answers always stayed just out of reach, until now. Now he had her name. Sira. He whispered it like a prayer. She was resting nearby, humming softly. She liked to stay near the flower. It never lost its glow now, as if her presence kept it alive. Or maybe the flower was keeping her alive. Jace didn't know, but he knew one thing. The pod was a message. It wasn't just a container. It was a time capsule, a secret, and secrets needed to be unlocked. He ran his fingers along the curved side of the glass pod. The alien symbols still pulsed faintly with color. He had taken clear photos of them last night, and now he sat down to study them again on his wristpad. One symbol kept appearing, a sun half covered by a hand. It was painted beside her image, always her. He turned to her. "Sira, what does this mean?" He showed the symbol on his screen. She walked over slowly. Her feet were bare, and her steps were light like falling feathers. She looked at the screen. Her eyes changed. The smile disappeared. Her lips parted. "Past," she said. "Can you show me?" Jace asked. Sira looked into his eyes. Then she reached out and touched his forehead with her glowing fingertips. Light burst through his mind. Suddenly he was there, in her world. It was beautiful. Tall trees that shimmered like glass in the wind. Floating rivers. Huge glowing flowers that opened when music played. Creatures with soft wings, large eyes, and gentle hearts. A world full of peace. And people like her. Blue-skinned, glowing, graceful. Her people. They used light to speak, music to heal, flowers to remember. Their world had no war. Until the sky cracked open. Jace saw it. Ships, human ships. Black, sharp, loud, breaking through the clouds. Panic. Her people tried to welcome them. They opened their cities, offered gifts of light and song. But the humans didn't understand, or didn't care. To them, it was a planet full of rare resources. To her people, it was home. Then came the fire. He saw her family run. Her mother glowing brightly as she sang a protection song. Her father throwing light against metal weapons. Both of them fell. Sira screamed, but no sound came out. She was taken, one of the last, placed in a pod, not by humans, but by her own people. To save her, to let her sleep, until peace returned. Jace gasped and opened his eyes. Sira stood in front of him, her face calm, but her eyes held galaxies of pain. He placed a hand on her shoulder. "I'm sorry." She nodded slowly. "You see now." He nodded too. "Your people didn't want war." She whispered, "We sang for peace. You came with fire." Jace looked down. He felt shame, even though he had never been part of it. But still, humans had done this. "Sira, I want to help." She looked at him, unsure. He pointed to her pod. "Your people left this. Maybe there's something inside it. Something I missed." She followed him as he knelt beside the pod again. He tapped on the side panel. You said this symbol means past. What about this one? He pointed to another, a triangle made of stars. She stared at it, then whispered, family. He froze. Your family. She nodded. My pod holds their song. Jace opened the small access hatch at the bottom of the pod. Inside was a crystal, smooth, pink, glowing. Sira reached for it gently. The moment her fingers touched it, music filled the ship, not from a speaker, from the air itself. A slow, sad melody, notes that shimmered like tears. A voice, her mother's, singing words in a language Jace didn't know, but somehow understood. Sleep, my star. Sleep until the skies grow kind. Wake when the flower of peace blooms again. Sira knelt down, holding the crystal to her chest. She cried. But this time, Jace didn't stop her. He sat beside her, and cried too. After a long time, the song faded. Sira placed the crystal in a small pouch near her heart. Then she looked at him. You gave flower. Now I give memory. She handed him a tiny seed from the bottom of the pod. Small, gray, hard. What is this? He asked. She whispered, if it grows, peace begins. Jace looked at the seed. Small, ordinary, but maybe it could change everything. He placed it in his pocket, then asked quietly, why did your people choose to save you? Sira paused, then said slowly, because I dreamt of the one who gives the flower. Jace froze. You saw me? She smiled. Long ago, in light, in dream, you gave. I remember. Jace's heart beat faster. All this time, he thought he had just found her. But maybe she had been waiting for him, hunted. It was just after sunrise when the silence broke. Jace was in the engine room, checking the ship's systems. Sira sat in a corner, softly singing to the glowing seed he had planted in a small pot. The music was quiet, but full of hope. Then came the noise. Beep, beep, beep. A red light flashed on the control screen. Jace's smile vanished. He rushed to the cockpit and stared at the signal. A drone, human-made, and it was close, too close. Sira appeared behind him. Her glow dimmed. She looked at the screen and asked quietly, what is it? Jace didn't want to scare her, but he told the truth. Someone found us. He grabbed his toolkit and rushed to the engine panel. He had known this day might come. Since the moment he took the pod and hid it from the company, he'd been waiting for the knock on the door, the voice over the radio, the men in black suits. But this was worse. It wasn't a voice. It was a machine. Hunters didn't talk. They tracked. They scanned. They didn't care who was inside the ship, only what it carried. And Jace was carrying something rare. Something they would kill for. Sira walked to the flower pot. The seed she had given him had already grown a small stem. She placed her hand over the soil, whispered something soft, and the flower glowed. Then she touched Jace's arm. I can hide, she said. I go back to sleep. Jace looked at her, surprised. No, I'm not putting you in that pot again. If I stay, she said, they take me, or hurt you. Jace shook his head. They won't touch you. Not while I'm breathing. She stared at him, her eyes full of light, full of trust. You stay, fight. I stay, he said. And I don't just fight. I run smart. He flipped open the emergency flight panel and started the engines. The old ship groaned in protest, but the systems obeyed. Lights turned green. Fuel levels low, but enough. Outside, the drone was getting closer. Sira looked out the window. It smells cold. Jace blinked. You can smell machines. They don't sing, she whispered. They smell like silence. Like metal death. The drone came into view, black, sharp, like a flying knife. Its scanner swept over the junkyard, searching. Jace pushed the thrusters. The ship lifted. Then the drone turned and locked on. The chase began. Jace's hands moved fast on the controls. He swerved the ship between wrecked freighters, dodging broken towers and crumbling engines. The drone fired. Blue light flashed past them, hitting a metal wall behind them with a boom. Sira held onto the seat, her eyes wide. Jace shouted, "Hang on." Another blast missed them by inches. Then the ship shot out of the junkyard and into the low orbit above the desert moon. But the drone followed. Fast. Hungry. Jace glanced at the scanner. 2 more red dots. More drones coming in. Of course, he muttered. They'd brought friends. He opened a hidden folder in the ship's system. An old pirate map. It showed tunnels, caves, places forgotten by most. One moon caught his eye. "Hold on, Sira. We're going underground." "Underground?" she asked. "To a place humans can't see." "Not easily." He typed in the new course. The ship dove down. Through clouds. Through old space lanes. The cave appeared, wide and dark. The ship barely fit. Jace turned off all external lights and dropped the power to minimum. Silence returned. The drones flew past above, searching, but not finding. Inside the cave, it was quiet again. Jace landed the ship on a rocky ledge. He shut down the systems, then turned to Sira. She looked pale, tired. He moved close and touched her hand. "You okay?" She nodded. "You fly like falling star." He laughed. "You're not wrong." Then she whispered, "You risked life." "I told you," he said. "I stay." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Sira reached into her pocket. She pulled out a second seed. "This is not for peace," she said. Jace raised an eyebrow. "Then what is it for?" "This is for protection." She placed the seed in his hand. It pulsed. "Plant it near danger," she said. "It will grow fast. It will protect." "Like a weapon?" She shook her head. "Like a guardian." He nodded. "Got it." Later, Jace opened the emergency signal logs. The drones had come from his old employer. He read the message again. "To Unite 43. Confirm recovery of asset. Pod identified. Subject class. Alien type E3. Energy basic. Potential threat to planetary control. Order. Capture alive. Kill if resistance." He stared at the last line. "Kill if resistance." His blood boiled. Sira was no threat. She was life. Light. Song. She was hope. But they didn't care. They wanted control. They always did. He turned to her. "Sira, they're not going to stop. I thought maybe they just wanted the tech. But now I know." She nodded. "They fear light." He said softly, "Then we'll show them what light can do." She smiled gently, then reached out and placed her forehead against his. A soft hum echoed between them. It wasn't words. It was connection. He didn't know where this road would lead. But he knew this much. They were in it together now. And the galaxy was about to hear their song. Her power is blooming. The cave was quiet. The only sound was the soft hum of Sira's voice. She sat near the mouth of the cave, cross-legged, the glowing flower in front of her. Jace watched from the ship, silent, as the petals slowly opened wider than before, golden light spreading through the shadows. It had been one full day since the escape. The drones had vanished for now, but they both knew it was only a matter of time. Still, something had changed. Something inside her. She was glowing brighter now. Not just her skin, but her presence. When she walked, the air behind her shimmered for a second. When she spoke, the walls of the cave seemed to listen. And when she sang, the seeds grew. Jace stepped out of the ship and walked over to her. The small flower had now turned into a tall, strange plant. Its leaves glowed silver, Tiny sparks floated off its stem like fireflies. "You made it grow," he said. Syrah opened her eyes. It wanted to live. Jace knelt beside her. "You healed it." She looked at him. "No, I reminded it." He didn't understand. Reminded. Syrah touched the leaf. "All living things forget what they are. I help them remember." Jace felt a chill. Not from fear, but wonder. "You're not just from a peaceful race," he said. "You're something more." She looked at him with soft eyes. "My people, we were called Sonali. In your tongue, it means keepers of bloom. Like gardeners." He asked. She nodded. "But not just soil. We grow hearts, heal minds, bloom life." He stared at her, stunned. "So that's your power?" She looked at her glowing hands. "It's not power, it's gift." Later that night, as the cave cooled, Syrah walked deeper into its darkness. Jace followed her, flashlight in hand. They reached a quiet chamber, empty and wide. "This place sleeps," she said. She knelt on the ground and placed both hands on the cold stone. Jace waited. Then the floor began to glow. Soft green lights appeared like tiny stars across the ground. Cracks in the stone glowed with warm blue veins. Syrah began to hum, a low, gentle song. The lights brightened. From the cracks, small vines pushed out, then tiny flowers, then tall, alien ferns. In seconds, a whole garden was blooming in the cave. Jace gasped. "It's beautiful." Syrah stood and turned to him. "This place will protect." "How?" She walked to one of the vines and touched its petal. It hardened into a sharp edge, then softened again. "These plants obey. They listen. If danger comes, they will act." The next morning, Jace woke to find his broken arm healed. Days ago, he had injured it during the escape, but now the pain was gone. He looked down. A small vine had wrapped gently around his wrist while he slept. Syrah smiled when he told her. "Life helps life," she said. He looked at her with a new kind of feeling. Not just wonder, not just respect, but love. She wasn't just a miracle. She was a living answer to a galaxy full of war. Later that day, a signal buzzed on the ship. It was weak, cracked, but clear enough. Unknown signal traced. Prepare for capture. Asset must not escape. Jace's heart dropped. They're coming again. Syrah walked in from the garden. She didn't look scared, only calm. "We are ready," she said. "You're sure the plants will protect us?" They remember fear, but they choose to protect. Jace nodded. "Then we fight, together." As night fell, the stars outside brightened. In the sky above the cave, a small red light blinked. A drone. A scout. Then another. Jace grabbed his tools, activated the energy shield near the entrance. Syrah stood behind him, her hands glowing brighter than ever. She stepped forward. "Let me speak first," she said. Jace opened his mouth to argue, but stopped. Her voice was calm. Her face was sure. He nodded. Outside, the drones descended. Weapons aimed. A loudspeaker crackled. "You are harboring a Class 3 alien threat. Step aside, or be eliminated." Jace didn't move. Syrah stepped into the open. And then she sang. Her voice rose like the wind. Strong, echoing, ancient. The vines in the cave stirred. The flowers opened. Light bloomed across the ground. The drones fired. Blue beams shot at her. The plants reacted. Vines leaped from the ground, wrapping around the beams, absorbing them, throwing the drones off course. More drums came. Syrah lifted both hands, and from her body, a wave of golden light spread. Not fire, not pain, but memory. The drones froze. Inside their circuits, something was playing. A song, a vision, a mother holding a child, a man planting a flower, a girl watching two stars kiss in the sky. Even machines felt it. One by one, they powered down. Softly, peacefully. Jace stared, speechless. "You stopped them," he whispered. Syrah walked back to him, her glow soft again. "I showed them life," she said. "Not war." Jace didn't know what to say. He had never seen anything like it. She didn't destroy. She didn't harm. She healed. Even machines. He looked at her with eyes full of wonder. "You're blooming, Syrah." She smiled. "We are blooming." And in the quiet golden cave, surrounded by glowing flowers and sleeping drones, Jace realized this wasn't just about running anymore. It was about changing everything. A flower for the future. The galaxy was quiet. Too quiet. Not because there was no war, but because something had changed. Somewhere, on a forgotten moon, deep inside a hidden cave, a seed of peace had bloomed. And the whole universe had felt it. Jace stood outside the ship, looking at the stars. He had seen many skies in his life, but none like this. Tonight, the stars didn't just shine. They watched, as if they were waiting. Syrah walked beside him, her glow softer than before, but warmer. She looked up too. "They listen now," she whispered. "Who?" Jace asked. "The stars. The people. Even the machines." Jace nodded slowly. "You changed them." Syrah shook her head. "We did." News had already started to spread. A story passed from trader to trader, from miner to pirate, from city to ship. A human gave an alien girl a flower, and it stopped the killing. People didn't believe it at first, but then strange things began to happen. A soldier laid down his gun and planted a flower at a war memorial. An ambassador handed a single petal to an enemy leader. A robot touched a tree and remembered a forgotten song. Everywhere, the same message grew like light. Life can begin again. Jace didn't plan for any of it. He was just one man. But one act, a simple flower, had become a symbol. Now, leaders wanted to meet Syrah, not to use her, not to study her, but to listen. They traveled to HFY, the capital planet of the Human Galactic Council. The ship landed quietly, but thousands were waiting. They had heard the stories. They had seen the images. Syrah stepped out, glowing like a gentle sun. She held a flower in one hand, and Jace's hand in the other. Inside the Grand Council Hall, powerful people sat in silence. No one spoke. No one moved. Until Syrah did. She walked to the center. No guards. No armor. No fear. She placed the flower on the table, then looked around. "In your world," she said, her voice soft but clear, "flower is small." People listened. "In mine, flower is memory of what was, what can be." She held up her hand, and a golden light floated from her skin. It showed visions. Children playing under twin suns, soldiers putting down weapons, aliens and humans sharing food beneath giant trees. A galaxy not ruled by fear, but by trust. One council member stood, his eyes filled with doubt. "Why should we believe peace is possible? We have enemies. We have history." Syrah looked at him, then smiled. She walked up to him, reached into a small pouch, and handed him a seed. "Because you can plant it." He stared at it, confused. "But what if it doesn't grow?" "Then you learn," she said, "and try again." After the meeting, thousands gathered around the central garden of HFY. The ground was dry. The soil had not seen green for years. Syrah knelt down and planted the flower Jace had given her. It glowed. Then it bloomed. And around it, other hands followed. Human hands, alien hands, robot hands, planting. Together. Jace watched from the edge of the crowd. He didn't say much. He never needed to. He had given one flower. That was enough. Later that night, Under the stars, Sira and Jace sat on a small hill. The first garden of peace grew behind them. Sira leaned against him, her eyes closed, her hand over his heart. "Do you know why I cried the first time you gave me the flower?" she asked softly. He looked at her. "Tell me." She smiled. "Because in that moment, I knew I wasn't alone anymore." He held her hand tighter. "And neither was I." They sat in silence for a long time. The stars above blinked gently, as if whispering thanks. In the days that followed, the story of Sira and the flower reached all corners of the galaxy. A movement began. People called it the blooming. On every world, small gardens began to appear, not just for beauty, not just for food, but as promises. Promises to try again, to live gently, to remember that peace, like a flower, begins small, but can grow forever. And on that quiet moon where it all began, one tiny plant still glowed in the cave. A single vine, a single flower, still blooming, still watching, still waiting for the next one to believe.